Now then, so I'm just going to make this video so I can really teach someone else all the bits of the stuffs that I've really looked into and sort of researched. First off, we're talking screen capture and really what's happening on in front of you here. Obviously I haven't got a touch screen, but it doesn't matter, the input of the mouse is basically going to be exactly the same. What you will be able to see obviously is the desktop. There's this icon up here, okay, and this is going to be the first thing we're talking about. I have a Radeon card, AMD, and I believe that Nvidia, obviously the green team we are on red team, but the green team have a very similar version of what I'm about to talk about. This is Radeon's Relive, or Relive, or however you want to actually pronounce it. This is the easiest access to screen capture that you got. Basically you turn it on, you add record desktop, and you will have hotkeys to start recording and stop recording. Also, once you've got a microphone sorted out, you'll be able to go into these options here and turn your microphone on, or you can use a hotkey to turn it on. That indicator up at the top left that I looked at, now it's at the top right, now it's bottom left, now it's bottom right, now it's gone. Easy. That's for really honestly playing games and such. That's so you can turn it on and off, and that is literally moving this thing around. It's irrelevant. You're not actually going to be able to use you're not going to really look at it. Right, let's get that off. Okay, that is Relive, and that's what I'm using to do the screen capture with. The reason why this is better than a lot of stuff is because it has virtually no impact on your display. So if you're playing a game or some such, like games that generally get clouted around in FPS numbers, the impact it has on what you're doing is like 3%. It's really neat, really clean, and will provide you in a folder everything that you've kicked out. Obviously this is the one that's currently being recorded. You can record in your choice of FPS and your choice of bitrate and your audio bitrate as well. For what you're going to be doing, and I'm talking to someone very specifically here, and I will continue to do that, so if anyone just happened across this video and fancies watching it, thank you for watching, but to be fair you're probably going to be wondering who the hell I'm talking to. For what you're going to be wanting to do, you want to get that as high as you can, because your audio quality is going to be paramount. Your recording bitrate, generally, because it's not that high a demand of what you're doing, because you're recording basically desktop stuff rather than a game, that doesn't have to be so high, and that will define really how big the file is on your computer. Okay, FPS, you've got 30 or 60. Now TVs do it in 29 frames per second, and on a TV generally you won't see the difference, but most computers, most real video VDU, visual display equipment that you're actually looking at, will be at 60 Hz or higher. So you want to record at 60 frames per second or above, really. If you don't, then well, people generally won't see it, but it will look a bit like they're watching a film on TV rather than they're watching something that's actually going on ahead of them. It won't be crisp, it won't be beautiful, and you want it to feel, I'd imagine, as live as you possibly can do. Okay, so that is Relive. Other options that there are around, there is something called Fraps. Fraps was very popular a while ago. You can go away. Fraps was very popular a while ago, but that records entirely based on your processor. While it would be fine for recording your screen, by and large it's pretty rubbish. Now most of the time people use it just as an indicator for the number of frames a second that they've got in the game. They don't very often use it for actually recording, because it's a bit gash for recording these days. The one I was talking about at the dinner table, this is OBS. Now OBS, as you can see, is there, it's picking up the mic volume. This isn't the one that I'm using to record on, but you can see what it is. Now inside this screen we have got display capture, and you press plus, you'd go to display capture, and it'd give you the option to create it. Then once you've created it, you'd be able to decide which screen that you want to capture. The benefit of that, really, if we just delete that, remove, yes I am, the benefit of it really is over here you've got scene. You can have 4 or 5 different scenes that you can click on during the recording, and it will morph to that screen, to that particular scene. Now what I've got here, I've got an image. This is chapter 1 learning stuff, right? This will be an overlay that you will have in the actual recorded video at the end, but you won't actually see it on your screen. So I mean, if you really wanted to go overblown, like you could have like a border around the sides of your windows and all sorts of other jazz, and you'll be able to put that in, or you'll be able to remove it if you wanted to remove it, or bring it in. So imagine you're making a lesson plan and you want to bring in more and more and more stuff. You can actually include and uninclude things, so new headers for new things, or go to a different scene. You'll find if you're using a piece of software like this, it will be very handy that you've got a second screen. Obviously you won't be able to see my second screen, but doing it all on one screen will become frustrating. So you'll want one screen which is like your control room, where you're actually doing all of the stuff that you're doing, and you'll actually have the screen that you're capturing, which will be nice and neat and quiet. Okay, next up, right, chapter 1 learning stuff I just created as a banner in a PNG. Now I created it. This is the software I'm using. You're not necessarily going to want to use this one particularly, but this is the one I'm using. This is Zara. Quite cheap, for about 50 quid I believe it was, about 4 years ago, and it can not only create stuff which will give see-through, if you like it, literally when you export it you only export what you see. So if you wanted to actually give it a background, then you'd actually have to give it a background, and then you'd select both of them, export them, and then you'd have a background. This can also create websites, and here's not there, and this is just a rubbish website that I've actually made for the band. It's nowhere near completed at the moment, but if you wanted to get into making your own website, you can, using this kind of software. For what you're doing, essentially though, it's going to be pretty heavy stuff, so maybe you're looking to get in a professional to do it. If you didn't want to look into getting a professional to do it, and you didn't want to lay out for that, there is something called, what the hell is it even called? It makes your own websites for you anyway. Good lord, what on earth is it called? Can't remember for the life of me. It's gone. I'll tell you what, it will be the top Google if I actually type it in. So let's go website creator. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's absolutely on the tip of my tongue. What on earth is it called? It really is. Oh god, it's not even come up there. 1&1 will advertise it. We'll go to them. Alright, maybe they won't then. Apps, it'll be under apps. Piss off. Take us to the apps. God, I hate badly made websites. Nope, 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 nope. I can't believe I've forgotten what that bloody thing's called. Sorry, but I've been at work, so my brain's all over the place at the moment. it really is on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, never mind. That can go away. Sorry, yeah, I was watching a bit of Bjork. So yeah, WordPress. That's the damn thing. You probably heard of it. Maybe I'm telling you stuff that you already know, but that has huge database of templates that you can do, and really you just watch a YouTube video of someone designing their own WordPress website. It's pretty much just click on stuff, add it to the website, and you'll be able to download widgets and stuff that you'll be able to do, and you'll be able to build it up. As for price of hosting the website, it's a completely different question. There's so many different companies out there. I used One-on-One, and they were fairly reliable, but they're a little bit awkward to use. Like, they wouldn't let me use a mobile phone number as a contact number, which was a bit weird. And like, their prices were pretty standard, to be honest. There's one, I think the one I found in Switzerland, I should have gone for them really, but never did. Anyway, so there's screen capture stuff. Now, at the same time as screen capture, you can do broadcasting, live broadcasts, streaming to, you can stream to YouTube, and you can stream to Twitch. If you've never heard of what Twitch is, it's essentially for broadcasting your display to whoever the hell wants to watch you, and you'll have like your own channel where you can showcase your stuff, add pictures, give people like an idea. If I just search for
coconut, the delicious coconut.
my channel,
I like the taste of the coconut.
yeah, I did press enter.
Coconut, eat it all up.
Ugh.
Jeff, what's up, Misty Walrus? How you doing, my friend?
Channels,
Good to
there
have
we
you here,
go.
Cap of
Brown
Pride.
Mouth 32, there we go. Now, if you are going to do Twitch or streaming or anything, it is handy to have another computer on hand to confirm that it's actually broadcasting. And yeah, so I mean, it also comes with stuff. Go away, bloody hell. With other stuff, so you can set up donations and stuff like that. It's sort of expected that the Twitch streamer will seek to either gain popularity or earn some kind of money. It's not expected that you ask for money, but at the same time, people like donating money towards that person, putting their time in to entertain them is fairly standard practice. So far I haven't actually had anyone watch my channel yet, but then to be fair, I've only actually streamed once anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Same thing generally happens for YouTube, but YouTube doesn't have quite as much of a personalization thing going on here. It doesn't have quite the exposure. Okay, in terms of like splash screens and stuff, it is pretty easy to make. Like, this took me about 25 minutes to make, and obviously, I mean, I did all the sound design myself, so I know what I'm doing there, but it's literally just a picture of sake that I can shove in at the beginning of the video. Now, what we were talking about, Blender, this is 3D animation software. This is horribly complicated and allegedly can do video editing, but I haven't figured out how to do it. I've spent about 20 minutes staring at it, trying to figure out how to actually use it for video editing. Cannot for the life of me actually figure out how to do it. Obviously it's there for making videos, and therefore you should be able to put stuff together and, like, you know, add extra sounds and stuff, so it must be able to do it somewhere in there, but I cannot for the life figure out how to do it. This is free software. Yes, I want to quit because you're too complicated. This is also free free software. OBS stands for Open Broadcasting Software. This is your more powerful version. Now, the difference between Radeon works off of the acceleration from the actual hardware itself, whereas this will generally, you can tell it what you want to use through the settings, but will generally use your CPU. Depending on what CPU you've got is to whether or not it's actually going to be any good, if it's going to be fast enough comparatively. You can stream and record at the same time, and you can do the same on that one. That one generally just gives you the option for archiving the stream. The resolution that you're going to be streaming at, generally on Twitch, it will limit you to 720 unless you're a partner, and that, I think you have to have 500 viewers 3 times a week for 6 months or something along those lines. Tricky to actually get that. But generally you want to keep the actual data rate down because you're streaming it actually over the internet. Whereas recording, you simply shove it onto a hard drive. It can be as high as you actually as high as you like. Yes. Okay, that's OBS. This is probably where you're going to end up going, the direction that you're going with. But with the current hardware that you've got, I imagine you'll have Intel onboard graphics. It depends on how good your processor is. You probably might want to go for OBS straight away, unless you've got a Radeon card or an Nvidia card. And I do believe Nvidia's does pretty much the same thing, but it's hosted as, it's called Shadow Play, and it's aimed much more towards gamers, like doing screen capture and recording the last highlights of the guy that they killed on Battlefield and all that other bollocks. This is generally what most Twitch streamers will use, because they'll have computers to do it. Now, you don't necessarily actually have to buy a new computer to start doing what you want to be doing, even using OBS. If the computer is newer than probably 2008, it'll have an iProcessor of some kind, shape or form. So you can start off using actually your current hardware. The older generations aren't particularly good at video encoding, but they're getting better and better and better. If you were to buy a new computer to do all of the work yourself, then you'd be looking at realistically wanting to design your own machine. Now, you don't like Windows 10. The newest chips from both Intel and AMD is going to be releasing their new chip in about a week, 2 weeks time. 2 weeks time, it's beginning of March. Both of them are only supported by Windows 10 and the other versions of software. So you'd want to go sort of into the second-hand market, be looking at Skylake. Skylake's a little bit pricey really for what you'd be doing, so maybe look at like the i3, i5, because you're not going to be playing many games. So yeah, in terms of RAM, you do want to have a fair amount of RAM. Realistically speaking, you're going to want to probably spend a good 3-4 weeks getting up to speed on what the technology is actually out there. How I went around doing it myself, there's a YouTube channel, Linus Tech Tips. It's friendly, it's cheerful, and generally, even though in some places it's a little bit daft, it's informative, quickly and to the point, and you can jump in at any point, and generally after watching, I don't know, 10 videos of whatever that you've looked at, you'll start to get a feel as to what's happening. Then you'll end up watching all sorts of other channels and wasting most of your life watching YouTube videos, which is pretty much what everyone else on YouTube ends up doing. Okay. But yeah, there's wells of information out there to tell you what you've got to do, of what you can do. Okay, in terms of sound quality, the biggest complaint and the biggest reason why most people generally don't watch videos on YouTube, etc., or particularly if they're going to be paying for them, is because the sound quality is bad. Bad sound quality, you're never going to get anyone to look at you. So, right, this is what I've got. Actually, it's the condenser version, but this just attaches to your head, and it plugs into what I've got. Obviously, I've got a lot more musical equipment than you've got with my production gear. Come on. Right, no. Let's pick up what I've actually got. Okay, so this is what I've got. Like, this was 300 quid. You're not going to want to look into this. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there are cheaper and cheaper versions of XLR inputs. That's XLR. Coming out. So, I mean, you can spend on a USB microphone maybe 150 quid, or you can spend 50 quid on a very, very simple version of this sort of interface. This one's a FireWire interface. I think you'd want to go for USB one, really. And then the microphones that you can buy, you're not paying out your ass for simply the glory of being able to plug it into a USB port, only to find out that actually the sound quality is a bit rubbish. There are headsets out there that you might want to start off with, but really I would say, yeah, don't. It depends really though on where you want to start with it. If you want to go in right at the premium level straight away, then do that. Otherwise, you'd be able to do it. Maybe test the water by releasing the videos on YouTube. Okay, this is Windows Movie Maker. This is really sodding easy to use. It is unbelievably easy to use. Alright, so you just... Where are we? Videos. There was just a little bit of screen capture that I've got there. Add that. We go to FileMouth. Add the flash screen. Shove it that side. Okay, you'd end up doing that. You can shove them together. You can chop them up, split them, and start them, move them around, alter the volumes and stuff like that. You'll have visual effects that you can do transitions with, and then once you're finished, you go down here and you'll want to export it. It will give you all these options, but really, honestly, you don't want to export based on that. Let whatever format you're actually uploading it to decide on what you want it to be, and export it as high as you possibly can. This uses your processor though. On my computer, it's got two quad-core Xeons. They're 5.3s. They're quite old, so they'll be like 2007 era, but they were like very expensive for 2007. So they're not bad. On my computer, this renders the entire movie to come out as one in about 1:1. So for every minute this is, it'll take a minute to do it at 1080p. Speaking of 1080p, you'll want to do it in 16:9 ratio. Pretty much every video display option out there is 16:9, and if it's not 16:9, then it has proportional good scaling. I wanted the world to use 16:10 myself, but obviously we started on 4.3 and then it went to 16:9. It scaled properly. I much prefer 16:10 screens, but they just don't exist. The world went wrong. Anyway, that's not hard at all. When I was saying use quality software, if you can figure out how to use Blender, then that's free, but otherwise I went with a piece of software. It's called Movavi Movie Suite or Movie Studio, something like that, and it was like 28 quid, and I thought, brilliant, it can do everything that I want it to do. It can chop things together. It turns out it's rubbish. It was just rubbish. Whilst it could use my graphics card to do the actual encoding, so it was faster than using Windows Movie Maker, and I do still use it more than Movie Maker. It was not worth 28 quid. There are like trial versions of whatever Adobe's version is that you should really be able to use, and if you can't, there are better software solutions out there. Don't use one that is free unless it's Blender, obviously. Blender's actually a professional level stuff that came from the old Ubuntu world that's just got ported into Windows. Don't use like one of the free ones, because they are shockingly bad. There is no point you setting something up to render or compile a video that's going to be half an hour long, and then you come back to it like 2 hours late and it's only halfway through it. You just going to end up ripping your hair out. You think to yourself, yeah, fair enough, I'll just set it off going before I leave the house and do whatever it is I need to do. But then if it accounts a problem, then that's the entire day wasted on you doing it. You want powerful stuff that will be able to use your equipment. RAM wise, I would say you want to be looking at a minimum of 16 gigabytes of RAM. Not because you necessarily need it for the gaming that you're going to be doing or anything like that, but because you want to be able to load the entire file into memory at any given time. Like when I finish this is 440 meg, 492 megabytes now, and that's simply in the time that I've been sitting here talking to you. There's nothing particularly fancy or anything like that. And they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and like you'll end up with files that are like 3 gigabytes for like 40 odd minutes, and you'll want to condense them down. You want to be able to manipulate them. You want to be able to use the software that you're using without it constantly having to reread that information. So RAM's pretty dirt cheap these days anyway. By and large, to be honest, you can get away with using a laptop as long as it's a fairly modern one, and you can just have like a home setup with it. What I've actually got for my my own recording stuff, my laptop, it's a well old laptop, but it does what it needs to do. If you look into Dell, they do these things. So you'd come home with your laptop and you just plug it into these things, and it's already got all your peripherals plugged in, and you've got 2 screens. You do whatever you need to do, and then it's still a laptop. You can take it where you want to go. You go on the plane or do whatever you need to do. You can do your editing anywhere, and you can do it. Sort of got a nice lean towards you. Whether or not you want to actually look into a completely different version like a Surface, because you can actually have that out on a table and you can use your stylus on it appropriately, that's up to you. By the way, if you want to do any kind of sound design for a splash screen of your own, let us know. It won't be too difficult. You won't want anything particularly fancy, right? So it shouldn't really take long. Just bash it out for you and chuck you an MP3. Right, so I've been gabbing on, and I've not really thought to myself on where I'm going to be going. I just figured I'd compile a little bit of my knowledge into a video that you could watch. Have a cup of tea and sit back and think to yourself whether or not you want to take any of it on board. It's probably not even listening at this time. Anyway, so yeah, rock and roll. I hope it goes well, and see what happens in the future. See you in a bit, dudes.